My name is Michael Orth. I am the great-grandson of the man that founded this industry, this ice house that you're going to see. These ice houses were built in about 1877, and they operated until 1944 during the war. Actually, they ran out of manpower and they had to give it up. This is a motion picture of the ice harvesting that was taken in the winter of 1935 and 1936. Although it was taken by an amateur photographer, it was done fairly well. And it shows the operation from the start to the finish. Because this film runs along rather rapidly, I'll explain to you a little bit of how, what you're going to see. When the lake would freeze over, they would watch it rather closely, and they'd measure it every day if need be. When it got to be 7 inches thick, then it would hold a team of horses. And from that time on, they would go out on the lake every day with horses and what did they call them? They were snowplow. They actually weren't a snowplower. They were a scraper. And they would scrape the ice and dump it along the shore. And they'd keep measuring this ice. And when it got to be 12 inches thick, they could start the harvest. They would mark out the lake in accordance. They'd take estimates on how much ice they needed the following summer. Say 60,000 tons, something like that. And they would mark out the lake accordingly. The ice weighed about, they got about 1,000 ton per acre. So if they needed 60,000 ton, they'd mark out 60 acres and start harvesting. They'd scribe the lake with a hand scriber, one direction first across the lake, and then they'd draw another line perpendicular to it. And along these lines, and they would go along with the field saw and cut the entire lake, the entire 60 acres. From then on, go along with a finishing saw. It was a mechanical saw. They called it a turkey kicker. It was actually a hand saw that was just adapted to a gasoline engine. And you'll see a picture of it. It's quite a thing. And they'd separate the flows that way. And when you'd see this saw sawing along, you'll notice some men with caulking bars, and they'd have to caulk those seams because when they went through the ice to the water, the ice would come up, and if they didn't caulk those seams, the water would run down all the seams in the ice and freeze the whole field again. So they had to be rather careful. And you'll also notice along the sides of the channel and things, they had boards, and that was for the same reason, so that the water wouldn't get in the cracks. And after they finished breaking off these flows, they'd run them towards the ice house in a channel that they had previously cut. And they'd cut off pieces of that flow, ever smaller pieces, till finally they got individual pieces, and they would go up a conveying system into the houses. And simple as that, they'd fill the houses about 17, 18 tiers up and cover the whole thing with sawdust, and that would be the end of it. Ice that way would last about 3 years. So if we could roll the film now, I'll kind of explain it as we go along. This is the scrapers. You can see they went to shore, they just dump them and they go back for another load. They did that because there was a lot of snow on the ice, would make cloudy ice, and that was undesirable. This is the field saw. That would cut down to within probably 8, 10 inches of the bottom. That would leave those remaining inches to be cut by the finishing saw. You can see they cut the whole field at once. That just those men were just guiding it and turning it around. At the end, it actually moved along in its own power. This is the finishing saw. They called it a turkey kicker. Just I don't know where that name came from, but and you see the men in the background. Those are the caulking crew. They're caulking the seams as they cut, so the water doesn't flow down into the other cuts. And another view of it. This man, he's just fooling, but that's a needle bar he has. That's what they used to break the ice apart. This is a floe. That's probably 40, 60 ton of ice right there. The cakes were 21 by 21 by 12, and they weighed about 180 pounds. And in the summer, men would stack those 5 high. It'd take 2 men on a block, and they'd hoist it up. You imagine the work that was. I don't think you get people to work that way today, and I don't know what OSHA would say anyway about that. This is my dad on the left and my grandfather on the right. Here they're separating the flow, breaking off pieces. And they go in the channel. There's a double line of cakes, and they break them individually. It was a highly intensive, labor-intensive operation. They usually had about 140 men working to do that. It'd take them about 3 weeks to fill those houses. This is going up into the gallery. That's the scraper there where they'd scrape the top of the ice. This is pushing the ice into the houses. This is the field from the gallery. That gallery was 40 feet high. You can see how the flows would come into the channel there. In 1944, on the last time they cut ice, they did this with 35 men, but they only put up about 35,000 tons. That other piece of you saw that was a slush slide. This is Al Klutz. He was the general foreman. These are men that are lowering the gallery that was suspended on cables so that they could adjust it. In summertime, they would make it in a slanting position so that the ice would slide down it, because they didn't use the steam engine in summertime. It seemed like it was a very dangerous occupation, but I don't remember anybody ever getting hurt that bad there. That gallery was 40 feet high, and there was only a 12-inch plank to walk along up there. Here, this is the start of a new house. They're starting on the bottom. They go up about 17, 18 to 20 tier high. This is a rotary snowplow brought in from Colorado because there was so much snow that year that the Milwaukee Road didn't have their own equipment. This is our veterinarian, Dr. Kluk, with his snowmobile, first snowmobile. The Random Lake Fire Department. downtown Random Lake. Here again we see how that was so cold that winter that the ice got away on them. It's over 12 inches thick here, obviously, and it's very hard to handle. The summer crew had a heck of a time loading those on the boxcars, I imagine. Again, these are men with the needle bars separating the ice. This is removing ice out on Highway 57. There was so much snow that year the snowplows couldn't move it. These are all prominent businessmen from Random Lake. Eddie Becker, Al Altenhofen, he was a real estate man. Henry Creer, the Creer Preserving Company. Art Major, Dr. Kluk, Dr. Detman, and Dr. Malloy, a veterinarian, a dentist, and our physician. You see the ice house in the background. This is where the managers and the timekeeper and like that stayed, up in this house. The foreman. They had their own cook, Eddie Schmitz. He also cooked for the boarding house that was back in one house to the north. You see how much snow there was that year. It doesn't look like much now, but when this steam engine comes closer, you'll see on what that had to go through. This is our neighbor, Fan Noah. This is a dedication of Sheboygan Marsh. I don't know what year that was. It probably been about 1940 or something like that. 40, 41. And these pictures are taken by Mr. Wilbur Hills of Random Lake. He was the president of our bank there. I think he was on the county board also. This is his house in Random Lake. And this is Mrs. Hiltz. This is how the ice houses look from the lake. That other picture never really showed. There's 4 or 5 houses there. There were a few more. One got taken down in a tornado in about 1924. Here again is a field saw. I don't know if I mentioned it. This portion is taken about 1942. Here are the planks on the side so that the ice didn't wash. It prevented erosion. Here again, the men caulking the seams. And this is a different turkey kicker, if you notice from the last one. This one's built out of iron, steel. Here again is, they had to constantly scrape that lake. This was Joe Godfrey, his name was. He was the engineer, the man that kept the steam engine rolling. Here again is a shot of the water. They called it the water box. That was the end of the conveyor, and they just lowered that down into the lake. There's a view from the top of the gallery again. You see, they didn't have much to stand on. That's the slush slide. That was run by ropes, transmission ropes. There's the whistle to tell the people when to go to work and when to quit. After they would get the houses filled, the Milwaukee Road would bring out what they call their ice train. They'd bring out about 100 cars, and they'd fill those cars and take them to Milwaukee, and the Milwaukee Road had their own ice house in Milwaukee. Here again, men are. No, that's about all. I say it ran till about 1944, I think it was. In 1946, they tore it down. Most of the lumber went to housing in Sheboygan. So it was probably one of the only ice houses ever torn down. Most of them, they just burned to the ground. But after the war, lumber was rather scarce, so they saved it. So. And that ends my